It was a cool, crisp night in September. I was getting ready for bed around 9:30 when I got a text from Steve, which read,
Yo, man, you trying to hang out tonight? Buzzman and I be in your hood.
I'm about to go to sleep. Besides, it's school night. Probably not tonight, sorry.
Man, you a bitch ass. Buzzman and I better go on some ding-dong ditching.
Oh, ding-dong ditching? Really, on second thought, maybe I will come out. Sounds like fun, I said.
Alright, man, meet me at the park in 30 minutes.
Alright, I told Steve, and it was set. At 10 o'clock, I met Steve and Frank in the local park up the hill from my house. I waited for my parents to go to sleep around 9:45, and around 10, I got some clothes on and snuck out. Though the only issue is that my stairs are incredibly creaky. They were so creaky, in fact, that I really had to try hard to make it not sound suspicious. I had to walk one step for every 1 minute. That's how slow I had to go to get down. After 10 more minutes, I was finally able to make it downstairs. I opened the door and quietly slid outside. The crisp fall air that night felt amazing when I breathed. I took a breath of fresh air and made my way up the hill, cut through some yards, and eventually made it to the park.
Man, it's about time your ass got here,
said Steve.
Come on, let's hit up some houses.
We did just that. Ding-dong ditching was in our future. We hit around the road and got some good houses to ring the doorbells on. Steve went first.
You two sit here and hide,
he said. Frank and I did just that. Steve ran up to the door and immediately rang the doorbell before booking it off in the distance. Frank and I decided to stay put in our hiding spots, as we wanted to catch a video. We simply hid across the street behind some big tree. Soon, an old lady opened the door.
I know you boys are out there somewhere. Get back or I'm gonna call the police,
she said in her scraggly old lady voice. She never called the police, though, it was evident. After about a minute of standing out on her front stoop, she closed the door and went back inside. It's funny because I could see as she walked back to her bedroom, each light turning off as she slowly wobbled back in her old age. Frank and I ran down the street and met up with Steve, who was sitting on a bench, quietly listening to music on his phone.
Man, what took y'all so long?
We're just trying to get you a video. I didn't really get a video because Frank was filming. That's probably a bad idea, though. Because, yeah.
Buzzman's always fucking up the videos. Fucking bitch.
Yeah, Steve wasn't kidding either. I watched the video that Frank had taken, and his finger was covering the camera halfway. But anyway. Frank, you idiot. Okay, from now on, leave things to me, filming-wise. Anyway, let's go hit another house. This time, I was going to be the one who's doing it.
Nah, man, fuck that shit. I want Buzzman to ring this doorbell.
Okay, well, fair enough. So anyway, that next house we would hit up, though, would unfortunately be the one that ends up ruining the night, in two ways, not just one. We walked down to her on a different road by the local lake. It was a house that Steve pointed to, but it wasn't just any house. It was the all-signature farmhouse that sat in the field right next to the lake.
This doesn't really seem like a good idea,
Frank said.
Buzzman, just do it. You already ruined the video. You can make it up instead of being a bitch.
Alright, so Frank went in. Luckily, there was like a 200-yard gap between the road and the house, as their driveway was super long, and like I mentioned, sat in a big field. Frank ran down the driveway and got to the house. Steve followed him to get a better view. We hid in the cornfield that they had right across near the lake.
Man, this motherfucker better not mess it up.
Steve was right. Frank rang the doorbell like 5 times. And didn't run, rather. He hid under the porch. He crawled under like a little porcupine, due to his big belly. The door opened up to a tall, muscular man in his 40s wearing a white tank top. He had a shotgun in hand. Who ding-dong ditching my house this time of night? He said in a scruffy voice.
You totally wasn't me,
we heard Frank quietly murmur from under the porch. Who's there? I'll find you, I'll shoot you instantly, he said. However, he couldn't quite locate where Frank was. He thought Frank was in the bushes. Little did he know that Frank was under the porch, but he never checked there.
You never find me,
Frank said tauntingly. Man, this boy's gonna get himself shot, I said. Steve, don't do anything. You're gonna make things worse.
Nah, man, I'll make that fucker want smoke. He gonna get lit, G,
Steve said. It was too late. Steve got out from hiding in the corn and crept on over to where Frank was, his BB gun in hand. "Steve, stop," I whispered. But I wasn't quiet enough, I guess, because the farmer heard me. "Who's there in my corn?" "Shit," I said to myself. I immediately started running back into the corn to hide even better. However, the farmer was onto me. I was able to outrun him and crouch in some bushes and then go and ditch to flank right around to where Frank was on the side of the house. I met up with Steve and Frank next. "The fuck did you do?" I said. "You both ruined it."
"You Huey, just trying to have a bit of fun."
"Frank, don't you understand? This guy's a shotgun, and he looks mad too. As of right now, the angry farmer was still likely in the corn searching for us."
"Man, let's just get out of here,"
said Steve. We did just that. We ran back across the backyard and disappeared into the woods, behind the guy's house. The woods weren't too big, but they were pretty dense, good for hiding. We hid there for some time. However, we began getting tired as we were all pretty sleep deprived from the past week of partying and hanging out after school and all. Sooner or later, the three of us were out cold, slumped on the side of a big oak tree. I soon woke up. I checked my watch to see that it was around midnight. How long have we been here? I thought to myself. However, I didn't have time to think that, as I heard the sound of twigs crunching from behind the tree. "Steve, Frank, wake up," I said.
"Man, what is it, G?"
Steve said, sounding groggy.
"You know what it is, but this probably isn't that good," said Frank. "Man, shut your bitch ass up. Who gives a fuck about your suspicions?"
said Steve. "Guys, be quiet. Don't say shit," I said. It was pitch black out, and none of us could see a thing. Frank, Steve, and I all hid it even further. I got out my phone flashlight and shined it into the woods. Such a dumb mistake. I couldn't see anything because it was dark. Frank and Steve got the picture and stayed quiet. "What do you think it is?" I whispered.
"Man, probably just a motherfucker from school messing with us,"
said Steve. I didn't say anything back. Instead, I went and turned my phone light off, as I probably caught on that it wasn't a good idea to have my light on in the first place. We continued to hear the footsteps and the sound of twigs snapping off in the woods. They were pretty far from us, but it was a quiet night with no crickets, due to how chilly it was. And yeah, so we weren't able to see it, not even me with my flashlight. Not that I had better sight or anything, but the footsteps sounded like they were getting closer based off of what I heard. Right? "Shh, everybody hide," I said. We all ducked down until we were pretty much lying on the leafy ground. But soon, the footsteps were standing right near us. "Steve, Frank, do you think it's the angry farmer?" I asked.
"I don't know, man."
Well, I really wish we could whisper if we had to, but in this case, I don't know if it was even worth it, because they may have heard us anyway. But even worse, the footsteps we heard, turned out, were not the angry farmer at all. I decided to be a man about the situation, and yet again turned my flashlight on to see who it was. Standing right towering over on top of us was not the angry farmer. Oh no, rather, it was no one other than Herbert Ernie himself. "Whoa, Herbert! Whoa! What are you doing out here this late?"
"Just come in to check up on you, boys. What's it?"
"Check up on us. Herbert, how did you even know we were out here?" I said.
"I have my ways. My name is Night Hunter Ernie, and it is my sole honor and duty to keep track of you boys at all times. And it seems that tonight you boys have been getting a little more stubborn than usual,"
Herbert exclaimed. "No, Herbert, you need to leave now." Herbert looks absolutely ridiculous. He wore his hair in a man bun, and his shirt was a flannel, unbuttoned, revealing his massive potbelly. He wore short khaki shorts and wader boots that went up past his knees. He had on a pair of night vision goggles too, and his face had a massive triple chin on it. He looked crazy, and his eyes were crazier, and amplified even more through the night vision goggles, some way and somehow. "Herbert, this is not funny. You need to leave right now. You're going to get us all in trouble. I just want to go home so I can go to sleep. That's it."
You boys need me. I sensed you boys were in trouble, and I came to rescue you." "Man, why does motherfucker always here, G? I'm leaving."
And so Steve did just that. He got up and booked it out of there, leaving Frank and I and Herbert in the dust. We tried to follow him. I got away, But unfortunately, Herbert grabbed Frank's ankle and pulled him to the ground with him.
Not so fast, Frankie boy. You're mine now.
Yick! Steve! Steve!
Frank shouted. But there was no time to react. Steve and I booked it far away from those woods. We ran so far until we weren't even in our neighborhood anymore. Rather, a whole different one entirely.
Man, keep on running! Keep running, keep running!
Steve shouted. Yeah, we were doing that. We probably should have stopped though to wait for Frank because, little did we know, Frank had gotten pulled down by Herbert. We didn't know that at the time.
Where'd that pussy be?
Said Steve. I don't know. We already know he's a slow runner, but I didn't know he was that slow. Steve and I began walking our way back towards where those woods were in search of Frank, though we completely forgot about Herbert. Steve, come on, bro. I just want to go home. I don't got time for this shit. I told him.
Man, fuck your bitch ass. Frank, man, like, bust my hands a whip.
Said Steve. Well, okay, well, Frank's always getting us into trouble. He's probably fine. I guess we don't need to look for him. I don't know. I was tired. I wasn't really thinking clearly. I would never actually leave Frank or a friend like that. I just wasn't really thinking clearly in that moment. And besides, when it involves Herbert and everything, and Frank, his plans really never tend to succeed or go far. So yeah, I reluctantly followed Steve back into the woods in search of Frank. We then heard him. We heard the faint sound of Frank calling out for us.
Yep!
Followed by the sound of a faint from off in the distance. We took that as a sign and followed the sound. Frank! I called out. Frank!
Yep!
Frank's cries were getting louder and more clear. Soon, we rounded a tree and found Herbert licking Frank. Frank was tied up with dental floss on a tree, and Herbert had his chubby tongue out and was giving Frank a wet willy. It was very, very disturbing to see.
Tickles!
Oh, that's right, Frankie boy. Just like little Frankie boy licks.
Yeah. Fuck nah. I'm out of here. I ain't dealing with this shit no more, I said.
Same, man, same.
Steve and I, now traumatized, sprinted away from those woods as fast as we could.
You boys get back here. I'm not finished with you yet.
We heard the sound of Herbert's screams echoing farther and farther away as we ran out of those woods. I ran home, and so did Steve. I don't even know where the fuck Steve ran, as his house is not even near mine. But anyway, I went home, went to bed, and called it a night. And that is why you should never go ding-dong ditching with friends that you know you could always get into trouble with.